Venus in the seventh house. Partnership and recognition. Welcome to Venus in the seventh house in synastry. In this overlay, we explore what happens when one person's Venus falls into another person's seventh house, the house of partnership, committed relationship, open negotiation, and how one engages with a significant other. This is among the most classically significant overlays in synastry. It has been associated with marriage, long-term partnership, and deep relational compatibility across astrological traditions. That reputation is not unfounded, but it is worth exploring what this overlay actually does, rather than simply what it promises. The seventh house is the house of the other, specifically, the other we choose. It governs how we approach partnership, what we seek in a committed companion, and the dynamic that plays out between self and other at the relational level. When Venus falls here, it lights up that space with grace, beauty, and a sense of rightness. The house person looks at the Venus person and recognizes something of their ideal partner. From the Venus person's perspective, the house person is someone they instinctively want to be with. There is an ease in relating, a sense that the house person understands how to be in a relationship in ways the Venus person values. The Venus person may feel more themselves in the context of partnering with this particular person. From the house person's perspective, the Venus person activates the seventh house in all the right ways. They embody qualities the house person is either looking for or learning to embody themselves. This can feel like meeting someone who reflects a version of who one could become in relationship, which is both exciting and, at times, slightly confronting. At its warmest, this overlay creates genuine compatibility at the partnership level. The two people tend to understand each other's relational needs, to negotiate well, to bring out each other's best social and interpersonal qualities. There is often a natural harmony in how the relationship operates, a sense that two people are, in some fundamental way, well matched. The Venus person also tends to bring beauty into the house person's experience of relationship itself. The house person may feel that their idea of what a good partnership looks like is expanded or affirmed by the Venus person's presence. This can be deeply healing, especially for someone who has experienced difficulty in relationships. Traditional astrology adds an important layer of nuance to what might otherwise seem like an uncomplicated gift. The seventh house is an angular house, one of the four most powerful positions in the chart, and Venus is genuinely at home in angular terrain. She is a social planet, oriented toward relating, and the seventh house is the most relational house of all. On the surface, this looks like a straightforward match, and yet traditional practice asks us to look more carefully. Venus rules both Taurus and Libra, and it is through Libra that she has her natural affinity with the seventh house, which is Libra's house. In this sense, Venus here is operating in familiar symbolic territory. But familiarity is not always ease. The seventh house also governs open enemies, legal contracts, and the shadow of the self projected outward, dimensions that complicate the romance. What traditional astrology contributes most meaningfully here is a reminder that even a benefic planet placed in a strong and sympathetic house is not a guarantee. Venus is a soft planet. She inclines toward harmony, agreement, and the avoidance of friction. In the seventh house, those tendencies can work in the relationship's favor, smoothing the inevitable difficulties of partnership, but they can also work against it. A Venus that will not confront, that prioritizes pleasantness over truth, that flinches from the necessary discomforts of real intimacy. That Venus, even in the seventh, does not build lasting partnership. She builds a beautiful surface. Traditional astrologers would note that the benefic nature of a planet tells us about its intentions, not its outcomes. The outcomes depend on what both people are willing to do with what the overlay offers. However, the seventh house overlay carries with it the dynamics of projection. The seventh house governs not only partnership but the projected other, the qualities we have not yet integrated in ourselves that we seek in a partner. When Venus falls here, the house person may project ideals of beauty, harmony, and love onto the Venus person that the Venus person cannot sustain indefinitely. This means there is a risk of idealization. The house person may see in the Venus person the partner they have always wanted, and then be surprised, or even hurt, when the Venus person reveals the full complexity of their humanness. The seventh house overlay can create the feeling of having found the one without the depth of knowing that true partnership requires. The Venus person, for their part, may feel a pressure to remain beautiful, agreeable, and harmonious, to hold the shape that the house person has placed them in. This is ultimately unsustainable, and the relationship deepens when both people can move past the ideal and into the real. At its highest expression, this overlay creates genuine partnership, not just romantic attraction, but a true orientation toward building something together. The Venus person helps the house person understand love as a practice of mutual appreciation and negotiation, not a state of perpetual harmony. When balanced, Venus in the seventh house creates deep relational compatibility, beauty in partnership, and a genuine sense of having found a significant other. When imbalanced, it can lead to projection, idealization, or the mistaking of a beautiful beginning for a complete relationship. At its core, this overlay is about recognition, the particular experience of looking at another person and knowing in some quiet and definitive way that they matter.
This was Venus in the seventh house in Synastry Overlays. Thank you for listening. Next, Venus in the eighth house.